Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to CCMA's Leading Edge webinar on talking about sexuality on campus with Christopher West. And I'll turn it over to Mike St. Pierre.
Thanks, Deacon Frank. Really appreciate it. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I've known today's guest, Christopher West, for over 20 years, and I am thrilled to welcome Christopher to share with us what I believe is a very needed message for all of our campuses. Christopher is the proud father of 5 children, and he's known as the world's most recognized teacher of St. John Paul II's Theology of the Body. He's the founder and president of the Core Project, and his work has been featured in the New York Times, ABC News, Fox News, MSNBC, and tons of Catholic and evangelical media outlets. In addition to the Core Project, Christopher helped found the Theology of the Body Institute, and his new one-day event is called Made for More. Yes.
Well, hello, everyone. Technology is great when it works, as I said, and not so great when through technology with campus ministers around the country to talk about some very pressing issues. That video that I was hoping to show you was really unfolding the present state of affairs, how we're all stuck on our smartphones, and what it really depicted quite pointedly. Maybe we could send the link out to everybody later so that you can watch it on your own time, is just how technology has absorbed our attention and how we have stopped being able in the modern world to see one another. I want us to reflect on this from St. Augustine. It says, the deepest desire of the human heart is to see another and to be seen by that other's loving gaze. Let's think about that for a minute. What is this cry of our heart to be seen, to be known? And what is the difference between looking at someone and seeing someone? And if I can run the risk of sounding sexist here for a moment, I think women understand this distinction more clearly than men and more readily than men. So I want the women out there who are on this webinar to reflect on this. What is the difference between when someone is looking at you and when someone sees you? When we look at someone, we're sizing them up. We're comparing them to others. We are evaluating them, whether they please us in their appearance or not. But when we see someone, it's different. And there's this line in the gospel I want to talk about, and this is all critical for a proper understanding of the crisis, the sexual crisis, the gender crisis. This is what we want to get to eventually here, but we got to get to the underlying problem. And here's the problem. Jesus diagnoses it very well when he says, they look, but they do not see. They look, but they do not see. And I want to suggest that the crisis we are facing today with regard to human sexuality and the crisis of love that we are facing today can really be boiled down to this distinction, the difference between looking and seeing. When we look at the human body, we treat it as something. But when we see the human body, we treat it as someone. I want to suggest that there's a crisis in love today that is rooted in a crisis of the person. We don't know what the human person is anymore. And I want to suggest that the crisis of the person is rooted precisely in this crisis of looking versus seeing. It's a crisis of the body. The crisis of the body is this: we look, but we do not see. We look at the body as something, and we treat it as repeatable, replaceable, and dispensable. But here's the thing. The human body is not something that's repeatable, replaceable, and dispensable. Toasters are replaceable, repeatable, and dispensable. What do I mean? When your toaster breaks, right, you get rid of it and you get another one. Toasters are replaceable. Toasters are dispensable. Throw it away if it doesn't work. If it's not pleasing you anymore, get rid of that toaster. Toasters are repeatable because you can go to the store and see 100 other toasters just like it. Toasters are dispensable, replaceable, and repeatable. But the human person is indispensable, irreplaceable, and unrepeatable. When we are merely looking at someone and not seeing that someone, we're going to treat that person, we're going to treat that body, which is not just a body, but somebody, we're going to treat that body as dispensable, replaceable, repeatable. But the human person is indispensable, irreplaceable, and unrepeatable. Let's look at those three words: indispensable. It is a tragic violation of the human being when we dispense with the human being, when we think you are of no use to me, so I will dispense with you. This is a painful, painful violation. If any one of us has been treated that way, dispensable, it wounds us terribly. It goes right to the core of our sense of ourselves and is a painful affront to our own sense of ourselves. The human being is unrepeatable. There is no other you in the whole history of the universe, and there never will be. I want to zoom in on this. The unrepeatable mystery of the human being. Okay, whatever your age is right now, add 9 months to it, and you're back at the moment of your conception. And I know we maybe don't like to think so much about our parents coming together when we were conceived. So, don't necessarily think of the details, but praise God every day for the fact that your mother and father came together in that intimate embrace that brought you into existence. And in that moment, there was one egg involved, but there were, are you ready for this? Something like 500 million sperm. One egg, 500 million sperm. If it had been any other sperm that met that egg the moment you were conceived, you would not exist. Someone else would exist. So right there, you are 1 in 500 million, okay? But multiply that by the factor of every one of your ancestors, because you are not only the fruit of your parents' sexual union, but of their parents' sexual union, and their parents' sexual union, and their parents, and their parents, and their parents, and their parents, the whole way back to the beginning of time. And this means that if any other sperm had met an egg that led to any one of your ancestors, guess what? You would not exist. The chance of your existence is either just that random biological evolution that is utterly meaningless. Your existence is either meaningless or just perhaps there was a loving hand guiding every one of those 500 million sperm in every one of those however hundreds of thousands of sexual unions that led to your ancestors, that led to you. Do the math on that, and it's absolutely mind-boggling. Your existence is either total random chance or there's a loving hand guiding every one of those sperm because love wanted you to exist. When you begin to realize, when you begin to enter into that paradigm, when you start putting on these glasses to see the unrepeatable mystery of your own existence, that there's no other you, and that love, through an incredible series of events over millions of years, brought you into existence, it changes the way we see the person. We're no longer just looking at a body as a thing. We're looking at the human body as someone. Here again is that difference between seeing and looking. When we merely look, This is the point I want to get to. And this is the language of John Paul II. When we merely look at the body, we're going to treat it as a thing. And that thing is going to be dispensable, replaceable, and repeatable. But when we see the body, as the revelation of the unrepeatable mystery of a person, then we begin to recognize that that body is somebody, and that somebody is indispensable, irreplaceable, and unrepeatable. When we're merely looking at someone, what do? There we are, we're on Tinder, for example, and we are looking, we're swiping, and we're like, I don't like your nose, swipe. I don't like your breasts, swipe. You're too this or you're too that, swipe. What are we doing when we're swiping people away? We're treating people as dispensable, replaceable, and repeatable. When we reduce bodies to mere qualities that please me or displease me, we are no longer seeing the person and no longer loving the person. Now, let me say this. We are meant to be attracted to certain qualities that people have. There's nothing wrong with finding, certain qualities attractive in someone and other qualities maybe less attractive. In my own life, I don't know why this is the case, but I have always been wired to be attracted to red hair. I find red hair in a woman very attractive. My wife is a brunette. So if my love stops merely at qualities, and here's the key point, qualities of a person are repeatable. You will be able to find those same qualities in any number of persons. Red hair is a repeatable quality. I could find any number of women with red hair. But love is only love, St. John Paul II says, when it reaches beyond the qualities to the unrepeatable mystery of the person. Then love, when it reaches that level, we have a foundation on which to build a lasting relationship. In our world today, we are trained to look at qualities, to evaluate persons based on repeatable qualities, and only to stay with that person as long as those qualities are pleasing to me, right? This is the hookup culture in its very essence. I reduce a person to qualities that please me. I use that person to be pleased, and as soon as you no longer please me, I dispense with you. We, in this environment, are not reaching the unrepeatable mystery of the person. Sexual relationships are only in keeping with human dignity when they affirm the unrepeatable mystery of the person. But for this to happen, I have to go on a journey from qualities that attract me in another to the unrepeatable mystery of the person. Back to the red hair, if I may. So my wife is a brunette. If my love only went as deeply as repeatable qualities, and in this instance, the quality of red hair, my wife would think she needs to dye her hair for me to love her. Similarly, if we were out to dinner and an attractive redheaded waitress showed up to take our order, where would my love shift? And how would my wife feel? She would feel replaceable. She would feel repeatable. She would feel dispensable because my very immature love has stopped at certain qualities that I find pleasing and has not reached the unrepeatable mystery of Wendy. That's my wife's name, Wendy. But if my love indeed goes on that journey, and here John Paul II says that the qualities of a person, hair color, body type, certain personality traits that we are initially attracted to and should be, right? Those are what he calls the raw material of love. The raw material of love. But we make a huge mistake when we stop at the raw material. What are you supposed to do with raw material? You're supposed to build it into something, right? The raw material of attraction, certain qualities we find attractive in another. Yes, fine and good, but let those qualities lead you on a journey to the unrepeatable mystery of the person. See, there's no other Wendy West in the world. And if my wife knows that my love reaches that unrepeatable mystery of Wendy, then the redheaded waitress can show up and I can say, isn't she lovely? And my wife is not threatened because my wife knows that my love reaches her. If indeed my love reaches her, right? If my love reaches the unrepeatable mystery of Wendy, then somebody else is not a threat to our relationship, even if they have red hair and my wife is a brunette and my wife knows that I'm attracted to red hair. Because here love has reached the unrepeatable mystery of the person. See, here's another thing about our attraction stopping at mere qualities of a person. Not only are qualities of a person repeatable, qualities of a person will change over time. Many qualities that we are initially attracted to in another person will diminish over time. If I can speak as a red-blooded male raised in this media culture, we are trained to be attracted to certain, shall I say, young and perky qualities in a woman. But everyone knows that these young and perky qualities shall sag over time, right? If my love has only gone as deep as these qualities that are repeatable, and I want to put love in quotes, that's what I'm quoting, love, because it's not real love if we're just stopped at a person's qualities. If my love stops at a person's qualities, and those qualities change over time, those qualities sag over time, well, then where is my love going to go? It's going to shift to younger, perkier qualities. And so let's look at this phenomenon. Not that it can't go the other way, but it's a widespread phenomenon that men in their 60s will divorce the woman they've been married to for maybe over 30 years and marry a young so-called hottie. What is that dynamic? That is clearly a recognition that this man's love never reached the unrepeatable mystery of the person. You see, like a fine wine, the unrepeatable mystery of the person does not diminish with time and age, but if two people are on a journey of love, they are discovering ever deeper riches in one another's unrepeatable humanity, unrepeatable person as they journey through life together. I like to say a woman's heart is like a deep ocean, and the man who loves her, his job in life is to go deep sea diving, right? And I like to say a man's heart is like a deep cave, and the woman who loves him, her mission in life is to go spelunking, cave exploring. And if two lovers are on that journey of diving into that deep ocean, of exploring that deep cave, they will never be bored with one another because they are tapping ever more deeply the mystery of the person. And the mystery of the person is in some way infinite. It never ends. There's always more to discover. But in this approach to human sexual relationships, we must make ourselves vulnerable. A woman must learn how to open her deep ocean to a man. A man must learn how to open his man cave to a woman. Because if I try to dive into my wife's ocean and she doesn't open it to me, this is not love, this is a kind of violation. If she starts poking around in my interior and I haven't welcomed her there, that's not love, that's a violation. Love, real love, demands incredible vulnerability. I want to talk about that word, vulnerability. Comes from the Latin vulnus, which means wound. Vulnerability means the ability to be wounded, right? If we open ourselves up to the risk of being seen and known and loved, we might also be looked at, evaluated, and rejected. That's the risk. Will we make the risk of making ourselves vulnerable? Will we take the risk of making ourselves vulnerable? The ability to be wounded. Love itself is a kind of wound. Here's one of the main points I want to emphasize. I'm going to try to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes or so, and then I'm going to take any of your questions. We're trying to get here at what, again, John Paul II calls the unrepeatable mystery of the person. And we want to, in our human relationships, we want to learn how to see one another. And I hope some practical questions will come out in the Q&A about what is the application here in campus ministry, right? What is the application for helping young people to love one another, to learn how to see one another? How do we do this? But here's what I want to draw out here. Christ himself in the Gospels, one of his first invitations. Here are the first 2 invitations that Jesus gives us in the Gospel of John. Number 1, he says, "What do you want?" It's the very first words that John the evangelist puts on the mouth, on the lips of Jesus in the Gospel of John. What do you want? Jesus asks. Jesus wants us to get in touch with our deepest yearnings and desires. And again, as St. Augustine says, at the deepest place in our heart, we yearn to be seen. We yearn to be loved, and we yearn to see and to be seen, to love and to be loved. And so the very next thing Jesus says is come. Come and become one who sees. These themes that I've been trying to unfold here about the unrepeatable mystery of the person and this yearning for love, these themes are presented to us with remarkable clarity in, of all places, the movie Toy Story 3. And I want to conclude my formal comments here with a little reflection on this movie. So if you're familiar with the Toy Story movies, remember Andy and his toys, right? Now, Andy in Toy Story 3, he is 18 and he's headed off to college, and he hasn't played with his toys in years. And these toys are in the toy chest, and they just yearn for Andy to see them. They yearn for Andy to touch them, and they come up with this scheme to steal Andy's cell phone, put it in the toy chest, and call it from the home phone. So he's looking for it, he hears it, he opens the toy chest, he grabs his phone, and he had to grab Rex, right, the dinosaur, to get his phone. And when Andy leaves, Rex says, "He touched me, he touched me." I knew then in the opening scene of the movie that this was not just going to be another kids movie, but this was going to get at some deep, deep themes. And the main theme of Toy Story 3 is precisely that we are not meant to be toyed with. We are not meant to be dispensed and thrown away. We are not meant to be replaced. New to Toy Story 3 is the stuffed bear named Lotso. And Lotso is the self-appointed tyrant of all of the toys at Sunnyside Daycare. And he is one SOB, if we could put it that way. And we are meant to hate him, right? Because the way he treats everybody. But I once heard it said, and I believe it true, behind the eyes of everyone you meet is a story that if you knew it, it would make you weep. And indeed, as Toy Story 3 unfolds, we get to know Lotso's backstory. And if we let his tragic backstory into our hearts, it would indeed make us weep, and we come to have compassion for Lotso. So here's the backstory. Years earlier, Lotso was Daisy's favorite toy. And unfortunately, Daisy, on a family vacation, left Lotso at a rest stop, mistakenly, of course. Lotso travels through lots of travail and storms to get back to Daisy's house. And he looks in the window and he sees that Daisy's parents had bought her another stuffed bear just like him. Lotso had been replaced. And interestingly, these artists, these authors of these scripts are just geniuses. Daisy is in there sitting on her bed playing with a new stuffed bear, just like Lotso, and she's reading a book that says, Friends Forever. That's the name of the book. Friends Forever. How does Lotso feel? Lotso feels replaceable, dispensable, repeatable. He had been replaced. And the narrator says at this point, this is when Lotso snapped inside and became a monster. And we all know people in our lives, and maybe we ourselves have been so wounded. We have not been loved. And if we haven't been loved, we've been wounded here, then nobody else is going to be deserving of love either. And this is how Lotso becomes the SOB that he becomes, because he's so wounded. There's a scene when he says to Woody, remember Woody is the cowboy who's Andy's favorite toy. And Lotso says to Woody, you think you're special, cowboy? You're nothing but a piece of plastic. You're meant to be thrown away, right? But of course, this is what hits us so hard. We're not meant to be thrown away. And what's going on the college campuses with sex? We're treating other human beings as things, as objects that are dispensable, replaceable, repeatable. But we are in so much pain when we are treated this way. We have to numb ourselves to the pain in order to pretend we're having a good time. Another scene, one of my favorites in Toy Story 3, is when the Ken doll is trying to save the Barbie doll who's about to fall into a dumpster, and he's going to risk himself to save her. And Lotso says to Ken, what are you doing, Ken? She's just a Barbie doll. There's 100 million just like her. And Ken says, not to me, she's not. And Barbie just melts. She goes, oh. Why does she melt? Because she's being seen as indispensable, irreplaceable, and unrepeatable. When we see persons and not just merely look at them, not just size them up for how they can please us, but when we see and recognize the unrepeatable dignity and mystery of other persons, we are ready and willing to sacrifice ourselves to uphold their great good. Come, Jesus says, come and become one who sees. I close with this little reflection from my own life, and then we'll just spend the rest of our time taking your questions. I'm going to take you back to 1988, when I was a freshman in college. And, you know, this was however many years ago, 30 years ago now. Yeah, 30 years ago. And the scene was different 30 years ago, but, you know, the idea was basically the same. Get drunk, get laid. This is going to make you happy, right? I did an experiment in 1988, one weekend that changed my life. I decided to stay sober so I could actually see what was really going on. Because I began to think, you know, everybody's getting drunk all the time. We don't even know what's really going on. We're pretending we're having a good time, but are we really having a good time? So I said, one weekend, I'm going to stay sober. My roommate came back terribly drunk from a party, vomited all over the dorm room, and it smelled so bad, I grabbed my pillow to go find another place to sleep. And as I'm leaving my dorm room, I'm looking back at him. He's passed out in a puddle of his own vomit. And I'm thinking, is this fun? Is he having fun? Looks miserable to me. Went down the hall, found an empty room, put my blanket and pillow on the floor. Guy comes back to his room, doesn't know I'm on the floor, and he has a girl with him. And he tried to have his way with her. And I will never forget the haunting voice that said, "Stop, stop. I'd only want to do this if I knew you loved me." To which he responded, "I love you, I love you." Anybody think he was telling the truth? I won't get into all the details of what transpired that night, but she said stop and he didn't. It was a very, very, very difficult evening, and that experience haunted me. What is it in a man, I was asking, and not that women aren't guilty of the same, it goes both ways, but so let's just make it more general to all of us. What is it in us as human beings that can lead us to treat other human beings as things, dispensable, replaceable, repeatable things for our selfish pleasure? I had to hold the mirror up to myself and say, am I much different in the way I think, in the way I fantasize, in the way I'm in bed with my girlfriend? Am I loving her? I don't know. What is love? I don't know. I want to know what love is. What is it? I don't know. And I remember getting on my knees on a college dorm in 1988, and I said, God in heaven, if you exist, you better show me why you gave me these desires, because they're getting me and everybody I know into a hell of a lot of trouble. What is your plan? I cried out. Do you have a plan? Jesus said, seek and you will find. I sought, I sought, I sought. Long story short, here's what I found a few years later in the early 1990s. The teaching of St. John Paul II called the theology of the body. Reading this in my early 20s changed the course of my life. And I came to discover that God gave us eros, that deep cry, that erotic longing of our hearts for love and union, to be like the fuel of a rocket that has the power to launch us to the stars. If I may quote Toy Story again, to infinity and beyond. But here's the tragedy. With original sin, our rocket engines became inverted. And this is why so many of us go out into the world seeking love, seeking happiness, seeking union, and it backfires on us. But this was the truth I learned, and I close here and I'll take your questions. This is the truth I learned that changed my life forever. I learned from John Paul II that Christ came into the world not to condemn those with inverted rocket engines. He came into the world to redirect our rocket engines to the stars. There is no effective ministry on college campuses today unless we are helping young men and women to recognize this yearning. Remember, this is Jesus asking, what do you want? What do you want? What is this yearning? What is this ache? What is this cry of the heart that we all have? And number two, come. Come, Jesus says, and become one who sees. It's as we learn to see the true dignity and mystery of the person as indispensable, irreplaceable, and unrepeatable that our rocket engines start to get redirected towards the stars. Then erotic desire, in as much as we're directed towards the infinite, then our human relationships are no longer ones of using one another, manipulating one another, dominating and controlling one another, and then dispensing with one another when we're no longer pleased or satisfied with someone. Then we're on a journey together in our relationships. We're on a journey with other human beings to the infinite love for which we all yearn. I'll end there in terms of my formal comments and open it up to any of questions that you have for the rest of our time together.
Okay, well, thank you, Christopher. If you'd like to send Christopher a question, just simply type it into me. If you'd like to state the question verbally, just let me know that you'd like me to open your microphone. We have a few questions, Christopher, here. First one goes way back to the beginning, and Gerald asks, "Hi, Christopher. I would really like to know how to articulate what is feminine and what is masculine by giving concrete examples." And I'll open you up Gerald, should you want
Sure.
to call
Well, that raises a deeper question. What is gender? What is the gender distinction? Very, very pressing question in our world today. So let's look at it. Let's look at the word. I love etymology. Study the meaning and origin of words. And if you look up the etymology of the word gender, you'll discover this Greek root, gen. You'll see the same root in words like generous, genesis, generate, progeny, genealogy, genitals. What does it mean? Gen. It means to produce, to give birth to. When we look at the etymology of the word gender, here's what we discover. Gender means this: the manner in which we generate new life. When we understand this, we understand that gender is determined by our genitals, because our genitals determine the manner in which we generate new life, right? So this brings us to the very essence of the sexual distinction itself. Why did he make us male and female? The first commandment in Scripture that God gives the human race is be fruitful and multiply. The natural reason for the gender distinction, we're going to talk natural reason and then supernatural reason. The natural reason is to bring new life into the world. This is the love song of all of creation. Every living thing is designed to reproduce itself, and we in that respect are no different, and yet we are profoundly different, because we are not merely animals responding to some instinct we cannot control. We are human persons called to love in the image and likeness of God, which brings us to the supernatural reason for the sex distinction, the gender difference, and it is this. St. Paul tells us in Ephesians chapter 5 that the one flesh union of man and woman, of husband and wife, in that intimate sexual embrace, he calls it a great mystery that refers to Christ and the church. What? What? Did you hear that? Human sexuality is not only a biological reality, it is a theological reality. Hence, theology of the body. And here is the theology of our bodies. Our bodies, in the sexual difference and in the call of the two to become one flesh and generate new life, our bodies are the main sign that God has given us to point us to his own eternal mystery of life-giving love. That's who God is. God is an eternal exchange of life-giving love. God's love is generous. God's love generates. And this is why God gave us genitals, so we could participate and image his generous, generating love. Do you know why we're so confused about gender today? Because we have been rendering our genitals unable to generate for 100 years in the modern world. Contraception has been the lens through which we've been looking at the world. And so the very essential meaning of the sexual difference has been erased. When you look at the world through condom-colored glasses, gender itself becomes meaningless. This is the world we live in today. So in answer to your question, what are the essential meanings and purposes of femininity, masculinity? In order to understand that, we have to get to the fundamental purpose of the gender distinction, which on the natural level is to generate new life, which on the supernatural level is to bring us into divine life. That's the short answer. The longer answer is right here in Theology of the Body by John Paul II. And if that is threatening to you, you might want to start with, this is a brand new edition of Theology of the Body for beginners. It will be available in first week of March. So coming up next week, it's a brand new edition that addresses all of these hot button issues of what's going on college campuses, gender identity issues, uses the theology of the body to give much more thorough answers than I can right here in this webinar. But check this out, order it wherever you get books, Amazon, or go to my website if you prefer, coreproject.com, C-O-R project.com.
Thank you. Kelly has a number of questions here. Kelly, I'm going to open up your microphone because I'm not sure which you want to go with first. So, Kelly, I know you have a group there with you. Welcome. Would like to state your question? Okay. she might not have a microphone, so I'll state it for her. We'll start off with
I can't hear you, Frank.
Can you address the implications for campus ministry? And I'm not sure what that's in reference to, because that was somewhere in the midst, and I thought you had done that. That's why I was trying to get Kelly to come on.
Yeah, well, I started off by trying to get at the root of the crisis. The root of the crisis, Kelly, that you are facing on campus is that young men and women, and all of us in the culture today, are trained to look at the body but not to see the body. When we merely look at the body, we see something, and things are dispensable, replaceable, repeatable. But when we see the body, we see someone, and persons are indispensable, irreplaceable, unrepeatable. If we build a sexual paradigm on the idea of the body as something, we end up using people rather than loving people. We have to return in all that we do in our ministry. We have to give those two invitations of Christ. Number one, invite these young people to understand what it is they really want. What do you want? We have to get people in touch with their deepest desires. What is the heart yearning for? And St. Augustine says the deepest desire of the heart is to see and be seen, to love and be loved. How do we do that? That's the second invitation of Christ. We have to come and become one who sees. Now, I'm going to say this to all of you as campus ministers. We cannot give what we do not have. If we ourselves are not on the journey of learning to see, then we are the blind leading the blind, and we both fall off a cliff. I urge you, I beg of you, please, please take up a serious study of St. John Paul II's theology of the body so that you can become one who sees. Please, I beg of you, start with theology of the body for beginners, or you can take an online course, or you can come study with me. I teach 5-day intensive courses on the theology of the body. I urge you, just Google theology of the body and do something, whether it's through my materials or somebody else's. Do something to enter into this vision. Otherwise, we are the blind leading the blind. And I'm going to make a commitment today to Mike St. Pierre and everyone you are working with campus ministers. I'm at your service. You tell me how I can best serve you to bring this theology of the body to you on campus, and we'll find a way to do it. Let's do it.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. I was wishing Kelly, I think her microphone's not working. I can't believe that's what she said here. Her follow-up question, and there's some others in between, so I'll just make sure we get to this right now. How do you implement this understanding on campus?
How do you implement it on campus? You begin by sharing it. You begin by proclaiming it. Do a study on campus. Do a study of theology of the body for beginners, or I have a new online course that's coming out in a few weeks. Just stay in touch. If you want to stay in touch with me, here's what I would recommend. Actually, let me just bring this up on my phone. Okay, text me right now. You can pull out your smartphone right now and do this. Text me at 717-900-5614. I'll say that one more time. 717-900-5614. Give me your first name in the text, then a space, and then your email address. And I'm going to send you a series of emails that will take you further into the themes we've been reflecting on today. And it will also give you a free link to a short film of mine where I unfold a little bit more about my own story and my own journey with the theology of the body. That will keep us in touch. You'll be on my, in my email list then, and you will be readily informed about the online courses, and we can stay in touch and go from there.
All right, let's move to Marion's question. For someone on a college campus that identifies as transgender, would a way of showing love for them be by referring to them by their God-given pronoun, transgender woman as he, his, or is the loving thing to do to respect their pronoun of choice? I've gotten into arguments with this with Christians of other denominations that state that we need to use their pronoun of choice to be loving because it will draw them away if we do not respect this. What are your thoughts? And thank you for your God-given wisdom.
It is such a delicate topic. Let me start by saying this. In the long run, we do no one a service by fostering an illusion. And that's, under that principle, we do no one a service. It is not loving, in other words, to foster someone's illusion. And if someone was born a male, that's who he is. And if he then claims that he is now a she, there is some illusion there. There's some disconnect from reality. In the long run, we do no service by fostering that illusion. In the short term, I could imagine a situation in the short term, precisely, not to get in an all-out brawl in the first 5 minutes of meeting someone, not to get in an all-out brawl. I could imagine in a limited situation, referring to the person as the person introduces himself or herself to you, in order to enter a relationship that in a long-term relationship, you can begin to unfold the reality of things. I could be convinced otherwise, that we should, and that would be, just be honest, my initial response is we should never use illusory pronouns. But we are in a very difficult, delicate situation here, and I could imagine a situation. I've talked with those who are involved in ministry to those who have a transgender identity, and I have come to believe perhaps in some situations it might be appropriate. But again, I'm using perhaps, it might, because I don't want to give the impression that we are being loving in any long-term way by fostering people's illusions.
Very good. And Marion had a follow-up. How do you talk to women about sexual consent and promoting abstinence? Sometimes the excuse is that I just want to do it, or it's empowering to me. How do you respond lovingly when talking to a woman? Thank you again for your response.
You're welcome. It's first, let me underscore that it's a terrible injustice to try to answer these kind of questions in just a few minutes. So I'm only giving some food for thought. But we notice these buzzwords, empowerment, right? That's a big buzzword right now. It's empowering to me, women will say, to buy into this sexual paradigm of the hookup culture. Okay, someone who believes it is empowering to be treated as a dispensable object, a replaceable thing, a repeatable thing. This person is not being empowered. This person is being duped into believing that the true desires of their heart for love and union are just pie in the sky, and you can never attain that, so just settle. Settle for what the culture is dishing out, because what you really want is unattainable. This person is not being empowered. This person is being disempowered. This person is being robbed of her true identity. So we have so much homework to do, so much previous work to do before we address these lies of empowerment. This woman doesn't even know who she is. If she believes that it is empowering to be treated as an object by men, she doesn't know her true identity. So we need to begin by helping people rediscover who they really are. And how do we do that? By helping people rediscover what they most deeply desire. See, what's going on in our culture today, in this wanton indulgence of sexual desire, it's actually a reduction of what we really want, right? We yearn most to be seen and loved, but we settle for being used and discarded. We yearn to be seen and loved. We settle for being looked at and used. This person needs to be affirmed that in her the deepest places of her heart, where she still knows that she's meant to be seen and loved, that she's not crazy, that she is not crazy to want to swim upstream, to swim against the current of being used. This is true empowerment. So we must reclaim these words and set people on the path of true empowerment. Theology of the body can help.
Thank you. We have time for a couple more questions, which I have already. First of all, Kelly says thanks to your responses, and she appreciates the response and will gather those who are already interested, which is what they do. They're curious, however, that what creative ideas would there be for reaching a broader crowd?
A broader crowd, yes. Well, I'm so sorry to sound like a broken record here, but all evangelization begins with an appeal to desire, right? The Catechism of the Catholic Church, which is not only a beautiful presentation, an integral and beautiful presentation of our faith as a whole, but it also presents to us the manner in which to present our faith. Guess where the Catechism of the Catholic Church begins? With desire. Let me pull it off the shelf right here. Catechism, chapter 1, part 1, section 1, chapter 1. The heading is the desire for God. And here's how the catechism begins. This is section 1, part 1, chapter 1, section 1. The desire for God is written in the human heart, because man is created by God and for God, and God never ceases to draw man to himself. Only in God will the human person find the truth and happiness he never stops searching for. We must appeal to that desire, that yearning, that ache, that, in the words of Bruce Springsteen, everybody's got a hungry heart. That, what is that hunger? The church calls it eros, E-R-O-S. Christianity is not about suffocating or squashing eros. Christianity is about awakening eros at its deepest level, because at its deepest level, it is a yearning for the infinite. It is a yearning for the eternal. We get ourselves in trouble when we follow eros with inverted rocket engines. We crash and burn. Evangelization is an invitation to an infinite, infinite feast of life-giving love that corresponds to the deepest hunger of our hearts. Maybe we can close here. I think for the sake of time, I'll have to wrap it up here and put a bow on it by telling this final story. It's right in the Gospels. It's the encounter of Jesus with the woman at the well. This is the model of all evangelization right here. And do you know what we have? We have Christ the bridegroom redirecting the rocket engines of the bride towards the feast of love that this woman really desires. Why does she come to the well? Because she's thirsty. Guess what? We're all thirsty. And Jesus knows that she's taking her thirst for infinite and perfect love to all of these imperfect lovers. And so he says to her, go get your husband. The woman says, well, I don't have a husband. And Jesus says, I know. In fact, I know you've been married 5 times in the past, and the man you're with now, number 6, you're not married to at all. See, Jesus is trying to get her in touch with her thirst, with her deepest thirst. And he's trying to point out to her where she is taking her thirst. She's thirsting for love, but she's taking it to imperfect lovers. What's the imperfect biblical number? It's 6. How many lovers had she been with? 6. What's the perfect biblical number? 7. Who's her 7th lover? Jesus is her 7th lover. Listen to what Jesus says to this woman. He does not condemn her for taking her love to the wrong, her yearning for love to the wrong places. Listen to what he says. He says, if you knew the gift that I wanted to give you, you would ask me for a drink, and I would give you a water that if you drink it, you will never thirst again, and it will well up in you to eternal life. That's evangelization. Evangelization is always an appeal to the deepest yearning of the heart. It's called eros. We have to reclaim that eros is a yearning for God. It is a yearning for the infinite. We have to reclaim the truth, as Pope Benedict XVI said, that Christianity is not an invitation to suffocate eros. No, it is an invitation to liberate eros so that it can reach its true height, which is union with God himself. My brothers and sisters, if you are not familiar with this image of Saint Teresa of Avila, Google it. Saint Teresa of Avila in ecstasy. Here's a close-up of it. Saint Teresa of Avila in ecstasy. This is what the bride, the church, looks like when we are properly united with God. We are in ecstasy in union with God. And St. John Paul II, referring specifically to St. Teresa of Avila, said, we have a duty to show the modern world the depths to which the relationship with Christ is meant to lead. Where does it lead? It leads to what the mystics called the ecstasy of nuptial union with love eternal. You see, the sexual relationship is just a little glimmer. It's just a little sign of something infinite and eternal. When we aim our desire for the infinite and eternal at the sign, at the icon, which is human sexuality, the icon becomes an idol. But how do we evangelize? St. Paul studied the idols of the Greeks, and he said, I see you are a very religious people. Now let me show you the God you're really looking for. All the sexual addiction in our world, all the sexual dysfunction in our world, do you know what it is? It's the human desire for heaven gone berserk. What is evangelization? It's one hungry person showing another hungry person where to find good bread. What is evangelization? It's just what Jesus said it was. We must go out into the main streets and invite everyone to the wedding feast. And that's a picture of it. We're made for ecstasy, my brothers and sisters. Infinite ecstasy. We settle for so much less when we turn to idols to satisfy the hunger. Let us become witnesses to the eternal wedding feast. Please, please stay in touch with me. I hope you texted that number to stay in touch with me. Let me know how I can help. Bring me to your campus. Let's do an online study together, whatever we can do to get this message out there. I am at your service. And Mike, you know how to get me, so you and I can stay in touch, request or whatever, and we will do whatever we can to serve you to help get this message out on your campus.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Christopher. I have just sent all of you the link to the video. I apologize for that issue at the beginning. And Michael, do you want to wrap things up, or I'm not sure if you're on speaker?
Sure, yeah.
No,
just
thank you.
Thank you very much. Certainly gave us a lot to think about today. You challenged us and you invited us into some deeper truths. So I'm personally really grateful. And to everybody who took time out of your busy schedules today, thank you very, very much. This is a hard work. And while these truths are rich and deep and simple, sometimes the application is not easy. So let's be praying for one another as we continue to minister on the front lines. With that said, maybe we'll close with a word of prayer and then be on our way. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Mary, Mother of the Church, pray for us. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Have a great day, everyone.